My parents pressured me to lose weight so I'd look presentable for my sister's wedding, but now, growing up, I was always the fat girl. I do not remember a time when my weight was not the defining characteristic people used to describe me. From my first days in kindergarten, I was different, not just in size, but in how people treated me. My classmates saw me as an easy target, and their words left scars that I carried well into adulthood. By the time I hit middle school, the teasing was relentless. I could not walk into a room without hearing whispers or snickers. My weight was not just a physical burden, it became the source of constant emotional pain. High school should have been better, but it was not. If anything, the bullying intensified. People called me names, excluded me, and found new ways to humiliate me daily. I was the last one picked for teams in gym class and the first one targeted for cruel jokes. Even the few moments of reprieve I found in school felt hollow, as I knew the ridicule would follow me home. Books became my escape. I dove into worlds where I could be anything but myself. A hero, an adventurer, someone who was loved unconditionally. I earned the nickname Nerd, but that was one of the few labels I did not mind. At least it was not Fat Cow. My younger sister Bonnie, on the other hand, was everything I was not. Just a year younger than me, she was the kind of person who could light up a room simply by walking into it. She had this natural charisma that made people gravitate toward her, and she knew it. Despite our differences, I loved Bonnie. I wanted to protect her from the world, and for a while, I thought we had a strong bond. But as we grew older, those differences became impossible to ignore, not just for us, but for everyone around us. Bonnie thrived in middle school, quickly becoming part of the popular crowd. Meanwhile, I retreated further into my books and my shell. At first, I did not understand why she began to distance herself from me. It hurt, but I assumed it was just the natural drift that happens as siblings grow up. That illusion shattered the day she joined her friends in mocking me. The pain was unbearable. She would laugh at my expense in the cafeteria, point out my weight in front of others, and even trip me on purpose while I carried my lunch tray. At home, it was no better. Her friends treated my room like their playground, barging in uninvited to mock me further. They called me names like Fat Cow and Loser, and Bonnie never stopped them. I tried to tell my parents how much it hurt, but they dismissed it. "She is just playing," they said. "Do not take it so seriously." Their indifference cut deeper than Bonnie's words ever could. The only time they paid me any real attention was when it came to my grades. I was a straight-A student, and my academic achievements became the one thing they could boast about. They loved comparing my grades to Bonnie's, which only fueled her resentment. Years later, she drunkenly admitted that she had sabotaged my homework and ruined my projects out of spite. By then, I had already moved on, or so I thought. After college, I put physical and emotional distance between us. I moved to a new city, built a life for myself, and kept contact with my family to a minimum. Bonnie and I spoke occasionally, but our relationship never recovered. She was the golden child, and I was the work in progress. Last summer, I decided to visit my family for the first time in years. I was excited, hopeful even, that maybe things had changed, but I was wrong. During a family lunch, Bonnie announced her engagement. None of us had known beforehand, not even our parents. She flashed a massive diamond ring and basked in the congratulations. Then, she turned to me with a sly smile and asked, "So, what have you been up to lately?" I started to answer, talking about my career and the fulfilling life I had built for myself. But before I could finish, she interrupted. Loudly enough for everyone to hear, she asked, "Why are you still fat? I mean, if your life is so great, shouldn't you have lost weight by now?" The room went silent. Her words hung in the air, sharp and humiliating. I laughed awkwardly, trying to brush it off, but then my parents chimed in. They expressed concern about my weight and my single status, wondering aloud if I would ever settle down or have children. It was as if everything I had accomplished meant nothing to them. All they saw was my weight. Their comments stung more than I expected. For years, I had worked to build my confidence and independence, but in that moment, I felt like the insecure teenager I used to be. Bonnie, never one to miss an opportunity, added, "I just hope you have a date for my wedding. I do not want people thinking my sister is some miserable old woman sitting alone while I am getting married." My parents agreed, suggesting that with a year until the wedding, I should lose weight to look presentable. Even if I could not find a partner, they said, at least I could attract someone eventually. Their cruelty left me speechless. I stayed quiet, swallowing my pain as the conversation shifted. But when I got home, I realized I was done being their punching bag. I decided to lose weight, not for them, but for myself. At first, it was about proving them wrong, but over time, it became something deeper. I joined a gym, hired a trainer, and followed a strict diet. The journey was not easy, but with each pound I lost, I felt lighter, not just physically, but emotionally. For the first time, I saw myself differently. My confidence soared, people treated me better, strangers were kinder, and my friends noticed the change. I revamped my wardrobe, got a bold new hairstyle, and began to feel like a version of myself I had never known. Now, with Bonnie's wedding 2 weeks away, my parents have invited me to a lunch to finalize wedding plans. But I am not sure I want to go. I finally feel good about myself, and I do not want their negativity to ruin that. I do not even know if I will attend the wedding. Would I be a bad person if I skipped it? Or would I finally be putting myself first? I have to say, I am absolutely overwhelmed by the sheer volume of responses to my post. The support, the humor, the advice, it is honestly more than I ever expected. Some of your suggestions had me laughing so hard I almost spilled my coffee. I never imagined so many of you would actually encourage me to show up to the family lunch and completely upstage my sister. It is kind of hilarious when you think about it, considering where I started and how far I have come. Growing up as the fat girl, my self-esteem took hit after hit. It was not just how other people saw me, it was how I saw myself. For years, I wrestled with this nagging voice in my head telling me I was not good enough, not worthy, not deserving of being seen. The constant ridicule, the endless comparisons, and the feeling of being invisible unless it was to be mocked, it all piled up. Even when I achieved success in other areas of my life, that inner voice was always there, whispering doubts. But reading your comments has been transformative. It is like you have held up a mirror for me, one that shows a version of myself I have never been able to fully see before. For the first time in my life, I am starting to feel a sense of confidence that is not tethered to anyone else's opinion of me. I am realizing that my accomplishments, my transformation, and my happiness are mine, and they do not need validation from my family, or anyone else for that matter. That being said, you have also made me think long and hard about this family lunch. Initially, I was set on skipping it. After all, why should I put myself through the same old cycle of judgment and dismissal? But then I thought about it more. They have not seen me in over a year, and because I am not on social media, they have no idea about my weight loss or how much I have changed. Showing up would be a total surprise, and let's be honest, it would be fascinating to see their reactions. It is not just about shocking them, though. It is about reclaiming my space in that dynamic. For so long, I let their opinions and expectations dictate how I saw myself and how I behaved around them. But now, I am not the same person I was the last time I saw them. I am stronger, both physically and emotionally. I have worked hard to get here, and while I do not need their approval, there is a part of me that wants them to see who I have become. Not for their sake, but for mine. So, here I am, seriously considering attending that lunch. I am still nervous, of course. The thought of stepping back into that environment with all its old patterns and dynamics is intimidating, but at the same time, I feel a sense of determination. If I do go, it will not be as the person they used to know. It will be as the person I have worked so hard to become. And if they cannot handle that, well, that is their problem, not mine, and I am still weighing my options, but your comments have definitely given me a lot to think about. Whether I decide to go or not, I know one thing for sure. I am no longer the person who lets other people's opinions define my worth, and that in itself feels like the biggest win of all. Buckle up, everyone, because this is about to get good. Grab some popcorn and settle in. I decided to fly out for the family lunch, even though the idea of sitting down with my parents and Bonnie filled me with equal parts dread and curiosity. After all, they were the ones who constantly harped on me about my weight and pressured me to change. Now that I had done it, now that I had surpassed their expectations, I wanted to see how they would react. Would they finally acknowledge the hard work and dedication I put into transforming myself? Or would it be more of the same criticism, repackaged in a new way? There was only one way to find out. The moment I stepped through the door of my parents' house, I could tell I had caught them completely off guard. Their jaws dropped as if they had seen a ghost. My mother blinked several times like she was trying to process if I was real, while my dad just stammered, "Is that really you?" I stood there for a moment, letting their reactions sink in before casually thanking them for the compliments they had not yet fully formed. They scrambled to praise me, showering me with comments about how incredible I looked and how they almost didn't recognize me. For a fleeting moment, I let myself feel proud. Maybe, just maybe, they would finally see me as more than the fat daughter or the academic overachiever. But then Bonnie arrived and everything changed. She did not even recognize me at first. When I stood up to greet her, she froze mid-step, her eyes wide with shock. After a second, she let out this weird, forced laugh, the kind that makes you question if someone is genuinely amused or just masking discomfort. Then she did something so ridiculous it would have been comical if it were not so insulting. She walked over, pressed her fingers into my stomach, and said, "Wow, you really did lose weight." As if she needed to confirm it for herself, like I had somehow staged the whole thing. My parents, of course, found her reaction hilarious, laughing and agreeing that they, too, could hardly believe it. Lunch was a spectacle. The entire conversation revolved around my transformation, with Bonnie and my parents bombarding me with questions about how I had done it. Their tone was equal parts incredulous and suspicious, as if they thought I might confess to some elaborate scam. Bonnie, in particular, kept repeating, "I never thought you would change so much. I mean, I told you to lose weight, but I did not expect this." Then came the kicker. "Did you get surgery? There is no way you look this good on your own." I felt my blood simmering. It was not just the insult, it was the sheer audacity of her disbelief. As if the idea of me working hard, committing to a goal, and achieving it was beyond her comprehension. Keeping my composure, I smiled and replied, "Bonnie, I have always been beautiful. Losing weight just highlighted what was already there." She scoffed, shaking her head. "It is not just the weight. There is something else. You look different, like a whole new person." "Yes," I said, my voice firm. "That is what happens when you prioritize self-love and hard work. Maybe you should try it sometime." Her expression shifted from surprise to irritation. Before she could retort, my mother chimed in, likely hoping to diffuse the tension. "You should not take it personally, dear. It is just... None of us have ever seen you like this before. Honestly, you look even more beautiful than Bonnie now, and she is the one getting married." If looks could kill, Bonnie would have set the entire room on fire with the glare she shot our mother. I decided to let her stew in her annoyance and focused on my meal. But my mother was not done. "You know," she added, "maybe you should go back to your natural hair color. The blonde is nice, but it makes you stand out too much. I think you would look better with your original tone." Bonnie, who had been a blonde all her life, immediately jumped on the idea. "Exactly! You have always been the brunette, and I have always been the blonde. You should go back to looking like yourself." I could not help but laugh at the absurdity. What does that even mean? Does Bonnie own the color blonde? Can only one daughter in this family stand out at a time? Neither of them had a coherent response, but it was clear their issue was not with my hair. It was with the fact that my transformation had disrupted the family dynamic they were so comfortable with. For years, I had been the background character in Bonnie's spotlight, and now that I was thriving, they were scrambling to put me back in my place. When my mother accused me of sabotaging the wedding by trying to steal attention, I finally had enough. "You know what?" I said, my voice calm but resolute. "I am done. The three of you are so obsessed with negativity that you cannot even celebrate the person I have become. No matter what I do, it is never enough for you." I turned to my mother first. "Mom, maybe you should worry about your own appearance. Those wrinkles around your eyes, not flattering, and your teeth, you might want to fix those before they fall out." Next was my dad. "And Dad, let us not pretend you are in any position to comment on anyone's looks. That gut of yours has gotten so big, I am starting to wonder if you are expecting a baby." Finally, I faced Bonnie. "And you, Bonnie, do not ever belittle me again. Between the two of us, I have always been the prettier sister. Now that I have lost weight, it is even more obvious. So maybe, instead of worrying about me, you should focus on fixing your own flaws, like those chubby arms and those raccoon eyes." The room fell silent, and for the first time in years, I felt a sense of control. I had spent my entire life being their punching bag, and now I was done. I grabbed my bag, raised my glass in a mock toast, and left. Since then, my phone has been flooded with messages and voicemails. My parents are furious, Bonnie is livid, and they all want me to apologize. But for once, I am putting myself first. If they cannot handle the new me, that is their problem, not mine. Everyone kept insisting I should attend the wedding anyway because it would be the perfect opportunity for people to see how I looked after my transformation. Initially, I was hesitant. Why should I bother showing up for people who treated me like a second-class citizen for most of my life? But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that it could be satisfying to surprise them. So, I took their advice and decided to go, but on my terms. I made the decision to attend on the day of the event itself, unannounced. I did not tell my parents, and I certainly did not want Bonnie to know. Let's just call it a little surprise gift. At this point, I did not care if it seemed petty. I wanted to have fun at a wedding and maybe, just maybe, get a little revenge while I was at it. When I arrived at my parents' house, the first reaction was priceless. My parents looked absolutely shocked, their faces frozen in disbelief as if they were seeing a ghost. My mom, being her dramatic self, gasped and clutched her pearls. Yes, literal pearls. My dad just stood there, wide-eyed, stammering, "What? What are you doing here? We thought you weren't coming." I smiled sweetly and said, "Surprise! I decided I couldn't miss Bonnie's big day." My mom quickly recovered from her shock and started fussing over me, saying how lovely I looked, but then she tried to adjust my accessories, mumbling about how I was a bit overdressed. When she reached out to remove them herself, I slapped her hand away. "Do not touch me," I warned her, adding with a grin. "The gym did not just help me lose weight, it made me stronger. Trust me, you would not want to find out how hard I can hit now." She backed off after that. I spent the rest of the time mingling with the guests, many of whom I had not seen in years. Unlike my parents, they seemed genuinely happy to see me and showered me with compliments. "You look amazing," one relative exclaimed. "I almost didn't recognize you," said another. It felt good to be seen, really seen for once. Then I met Bonnie's fiancé for the first time. I congratulated him on his wedding, though my sincerity was questionable. Marrying Bonnie hardly seemed like a reason to celebrate. He did not seem like much of a catch either. In fact, he made a slightly inappropriate comment saying, "Wow, I didn't know Bonnie had such a beautiful sister. If I had, maybe things would have been different." I brushed it off with a polite laugh, though it made me uncomfortable. I simply said, "Good luck," and moved on to speak with other guests. During the ceremony, Bonnie did not even realize I was there. It was not until the reception that she spotted me. Her reaction was predictably over the top. She stormed over, her face red as a tomato, which only made her white dress look even starker, and hissed, "I see you decided to show up at my wedding. I hope you leave some food for the rest of us." It was such a classic Bonnie comment, dripping with jealousy and spite. I laughed it off and went back to enjoying the reception. Honestly, I had a great time. I danced with some of the men, caught up with old friends, and actually felt like a guest at a celebration instead of an outsider. But then Bonnie's husband struck again. This time, his comment was even more inappropriate. He slurred, "I know you and your sister don't get along, so maybe this can be our little secret." I was stunned. Was he seriously hitting on me at his own wedding? Disgusted, I gave him a cold look and walked away. Bonnie has always had terrible taste in men, but this was a new low. She had been cheated on before, but this guy was repulsive on a whole new level. I did not feel bad for her, though. After all, she chose him. After the reception, I flew back home and decided to cut contact with Bonnie and my parents for a while. We avoided each other during the rest of the wedding festivities, which was fine by me. I had made my point. One thing is certain, I will not be attending Bonnie's next wedding. And trust me, there will be another one because this marriage is not going to last. In my last post, many of you made bets on how long Bonnie's marriage would last. Well, the winner is whoever guessed 7 months. Honestly, I am surprised it lasted that long. I expected it to fall apart much sooner, but it took 7 months for Bonnie's husband to cheat on her and for her to finally find out. Knowing Bonnie, she probably ignored the warning signs until it was impossible to deny. Let's be real, she has never been the sharpest tool in the shed. As I predicted, Bonnie could not handle being on her own. She is now back to living with my parents, the same cycle all over again. The only difference is that she looks even more wrinkled and clueless than before. She is desperately searching for a new man to marry, but I doubt she will find anyone willing to put up with her nonsense. Meanwhile, I am thriving. Cutting ties with them was the best decision I ever made. My life is peaceful, fulfilling, and free from their toxicity. To everyone who encouraged me to stand up for myself, thank you. It feels good to finally be in control of my own story.